Hello, Sultan Ali. How are you?
Good to see you.
Yes, you too. I'm happy to have this conversation around education and perspectives and how all of those things play into careers across the world. So one question I had for you was, I think often I know with my kids and probably the information that I got growing up was, find a job you love, find what you're good at, and do what you love. So I'm not always sure that that's practical. I'm not always sure that that messaging benefits kids because I think sometimes they go through life wondering what they should be doing or trying to find something that they're absolutely joyful about. What's your take on that, and what's the messaging that you've given your own kids?
Thank you. Yeah, it is different in different part of the world. In some countries, people are not as fortunate as we are in Canada, that kids have too many choices which school they're going to and what they want to be in the future, and aiming towards that kind of education from very young age. Many countries where I grew up, many people did not have access to school because they were living far away. If they wanted to go to nearest school, they have to walk for 2 or 3 hours, or using any means of transportation for hours to get to those schools. And the schools were not full time, or it's just few hours here and there. And that time, their aim is just to be educated, just having some sort of education to support their family, themselves in the near future. But they do help parents and families with, either if they're in the farm, they will help them to do the chores in the farm, or they will work with, if they had shops or any other things, before or after school hours. And when I grew up, we were at least fortunate that we were living in the city. We had access to education. We were there. The school system is different because due to the lack of infrastructures, the school was only 3 hours for 3 shifts. So there was one shift in the morning, early morning, starting at 7 till 10 for grade 1 to 6. We had from grade 6, 7, and 8 was starting from 10:45 till 1 o'clock, and high school was start from 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock. So the same school facility was used by 3 different school system if you compare it to Canada or other parts. And then students, because of the lack of infrastructure, they would just keep going to school, and then they were busy with doing whatever, either working or playing before and after school hours. So the difference is, when I see my time with my kids and comparing it, that time we had this entry exam to university. It was not free for all. So you go through this entry exam, which we call Concours exam, that you do 4 or 5 hours of exams after grade 12. And it's everything from science to mathematics to algebra, and all of the questions and language questions. That will determine which college you will fall in. But you have to select you had 2 choices. If you select your first choice, if you did not meet the first choice, there was a penalty of 50 points. So if you have 2 back-to-back selections, if you miss the first one, you possibly miss the second one, because that 50 points deducted you from that part. But there was a prep time that you could do preparation and do a kind of mock examination for yourself to determine which one you want to do select, because it's once in a year chance. Sometime you would wait for the next year to prepare yourself to get to university. So the good thing was that once you're in university, after university, it was guaranteed that you have a job, which is different in Canada. So getting into university was not easy, but once you were in university, when you finished education, it was not limited. People were making it there. So you had a guaranteed job by the government, in that government of communist time. When I was young, because of someone as a Sultan Ali, his name was Sultan Ali, was one of the minister, and he was economic minister. I always dreamed that I will be studying economics to get his position. I think he's still alive somewhere in European countries. And I was lucky to get it. But when I got it, the government collapsed before I finished high school. And then when I was in university, there was another government. When I finished university, then the Taliban took over. So we had to run away for our lives. I didn't get a chance to sort out my own economic, let alone the country's economic. But here, when I see my kids, because they have too many choices and they change, like my 3 kids are in university, at least one finished, 2 are still there. They change their mind 3, 4 times, and that is not good for because financially it's not good for them, and the time will be wasted. So those are the part that I prefer. I prefer my time, at least, where you don't have too many choices. Here, the kids have too many choices and they change their mind, but there's not good or bad, but it would be better if there's some sort of exam or some sort of understanding in high school that they will understand which field is their interest and which field they're good at, to put those interests and being good at together, and then get to university or colleges or doing trade schools, anything like that.
Thinking about, let's say, education and employment, do you, did you work before you went to school? Did you work while you were going to school, and what kind of jobs? Or even your kids, have your kids had jobs? My kids have definitely had jobs where they weren't that good, but they gained some skills that probably will help them in the future. What's your experience been?
My experience and all our relatives' experience were different slightly, because we had a very good initial life. Like my grade 1 to grade 4, we had a very lavish life. We had 3-4 people working in our house. My dad was in a top position of the government, but unfortunately, because that time all the bank system was not working, so the bank was in-house. You put everything, your money, your cash, everything was in the house. So we were in one province, but my mother's brother passed away, so we went to another province for funeral. And then we learned the province we left, our home and everything behind, was collapsed from the hand of the government. So everything was gone in like a split second. My dad could not go back to bring anything, so he got ill, and I was 8 years old. My brother was 12, so we looked at each other. We said, okay, we have to do something. And thanks God it was not a child labor kind of policy, that we went around and we found a job in a carpet weaving company when I was 8. And the first job we had, it was 3 hours in the morning and then 4 hours after school. So we were working 7 hours a day, making good, decent money. And I was just weaving carpet. First day, it was just rolling the ball of kind of looms. And then after a week or two, they taught us how to kind of put those looms into different color. And then after a month or two, we learned how to weave it. A year later, I was supervising 6 or 7 kids. By the age of 11, I was supervising 26 kids, teaching them how to take a picture and put it into carpet. So I did about 5 years of work part-time before and after school kind of things for that position. But my kids here, when I talked to my younger one, especially she's 14, she said, oh, that was a child labor. It saved our family. It saved, and those skills are like very much depth in our body, because it was very young age, and I learned so quickly, so fast, that we were in a factory of 800 people, and we had group of kids that working, but the people that I was supervising, they were aged between 9 and 22. So there was not all kids, but there were older kids there too. So, but my kids here, I think they were also lucky. We had some connections to some businesses. They started working when they were 14, which is allowable age in Canada, but not before that. They worked in a pizza shop. They worked with Safeway Bakery. And that's giving them the initial responsibility that they can work a few hours here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of brings us back to the original question around kind of practical curriculum and academic curriculum, and if is there an advantage to one or the other? And as you know, in Canada, it's kind of one education system is applied to everybody, and there's not really a way to kind of move towards one or the other. Although I did say previously that, you know, education systems are always looking for ways to engage students, you know, build them towards their strengths, expose them to different ideas. So we have, you know, things like home building programs, or we have outdoor education programs, and hopefully that's a way to provide some practical experience to students. But I don't know, what thoughts have you got on that?
I look at it in the past many years, at least 25 years. I was involved with a school in Pakistan, and also here I wanted to become a teacher one time in early my age when I came to Canada 21 years ago. I see the education system did not change as fast as everything else. Like when you were the education system is the same that when people were sending a letter from one corner of the world to the other, it was taking 6-7 months. Now it gets within a few seconds, and the education system is exactly the same way. And I always look at the time, I read a lot of where I came from that region. I read a lot of books of Khayyam or Abu Ali Sina, which we call it Vasina in the West. They're still using his textbook in medical colleges that he wrote it when he was 22. If he was alive today, he wouldn't even get admission to medical school. But he wrote a book, Al Qanun of Medical, at age 22. So education system somehow is not caught up with the society. The pace of the society gone so fast, so quick, and especially our now, the way we are doing this interview, Zoom and all of these things. If somebody talked about it in 1900, people would laugh at them. But 1900, we had the same MBA process, MBA system that you do go and get your grade exactly the same as we have it today. I think it's 1916 or 1917. So things are changed so fast, but the education system lagged a little bit or way behind right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any, like, it does seem like, I understand some of the reasoning behind why we have a standardized school system. A big part of it is money, right? We want to provide the same opportunities to all students, and we've got a limited amount of money. But do you think there's any, especially with post-secondary, would there be any argument that part of the reason that education, let's say in medicine, takes longer because there's more knowledge, there's more information that we have, and things are more specialized? Do you think there's any justification for longer education for that reason?
I personally look at two sides. One is, yes, that is because now the people are specializing in so many, narrowing it down to so many different things. And the second part is that people are also the humanity developed, and there's many illnesses that we didn't know before, so it's coming up, and people do a lot of looking at that part. But then other side, the argument is we keep reading that when you're younger, especially the early childhood education is emphasis that people should be going to school earlier. In my time, you were not allowed to go to school if you're not having your front teeth fallen off, which was dedicating that 7 years old, because nobody had the birth certificate. So if you come to your school with your child, and if the front teeth is not off, you're not allowed to be in grade 1. So we didn't have none of this preschool. So now I noticed in Canada, the kids' teeth fall off when they're 4. So I said, why we didn't
What are
have,
we
like, you
waiting
could,
for?
I literally saw my neighbors, they had to wiggle it to see, they have to turn it, like one of the front teeth come off, that they could join us and be in school with us, because they were in our age and the teeth didn't fall. They were weak body. And now I notice that its nutrition is a big factor of that. But this is now, if you see that 7 years of education is now available, people go to school, or kids are enrolled to be in what do you call preschool, and from that age they are studying. But then we added in both sides. We're adding 7 years here and then another 30 years there. So it is long life learning. But if you could modify it in a way that people, when they're young, learning more, and then reducing it from the top part, and people will be in the society, helping society when they're reaching 20, not 40, not 45, not 50. So that's what my personal understanding. I know it is just sounds ridiculous, but that's, I see it the way comparing to myself.
I don't think it sounds ridiculous. I think it's very interesting. I think, we're, especially in, North America is Canada specifically would be the education system that I know the most about. And sometimes I wonder if we're doing it wrong. In fact, some days I know we're doing it wrong, but also, like you said previously in a different conversation, sometimes you have to be right at the top to make those changes. So I'd have to be the premier of Saskatchewan to make any significant changes to the curriculum. That opinion, though, also makes me wonder about, in some countries you talked about, like in university, having to write a test to see where your skills were. But also, I think in other countries, Germany, students get streamed a lot more quickly. What do you think about that? I think there's probably some pros because students go into an area that hopefully they have skills in, but are there any disadvantages to that? I know that that's not something that we do here, so it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was in Germany in 2016 visiting friends and families, and I noticed that they call it house building for people who are coming from other countries, and practicum for the students who are in the schools. So they're kind of learning and practicing in the same time. Depends on what type of fields they are going into. I found it very interesting because here, aside from some trade schools in Sask Poly, I haven't seen it in high schools. There's not much, although it's changing slightly in Saskatoon. We have seen this. This school is dedicated now. A couple of schools Mount Royal and EDF, and that they have some sort of trade-in school. But the trade-in school, I haven't firsthand seen it myself to see how much experience do they gain. Is it similar to the one that in Germany people or students are going to a factory or a shop or an office to practice for 2 or 3 days, the real life one? Because sometimes when we study in the book, it looks so different. And some people wants to follow those books. When they come to real life, they said, I studied this, but that doesn't seem like, because real life is always different than what we study, what's in shows in the textbook. Aside from those pictures, maybe some of the instructions that is people are when they're doing technical things may be exactly the same, but dealing with people, communicating with people, leadership, communications, listening skills, all of these are, you study something, you just see it very black and white, but when you come to the real life, it is always gray. And I tell my team, my friends, that when I was accounting, 2 plus 2 is always 4. But now when I'm HR, 2 plus 2 is sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 5. It's kind of everywhere. I know it should be balanced, but you can never find it the balance because you're dealing with people, different culture, diversity, and those kids needs it to learn very early in life in schools, not graduating from university, then facing to see who they work with or work with group of people or partnership or collaboration. They have to be immersed when they're grade 6, grade 7, grade 8. These are the time that they could learn, they could embrace, this would be creating a society the way I feel that if we have this kind of uh, experiences at those early age, they will be able to be better in their future.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and perceptions. It's clear that, you know, our knowledge of education and career is very much impacted by the context that we've grown up in, our social experiences, the people around us, opportunities that we've had or not had. So we could probably talk about this for days. So thanks again, and I look forward to hopefully chatting again in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shauna. My perception is never clear. It is always falls in a gray area, but thank you. Yeah, it's a good conversation.
Thanks.